Alright guys, so I've had plenty of requests to react to this video. I don't know why this particular video here, but the TikTok page in the right corner that you can see, top right corner, Charlie Burton Trading. I would definitely recommend you give this a follow. You'll actually learn a lot, more so as to the stupidity of how people can say a lot about nothing, and you can dress things up how you like. You can make yourself come across how you like, as smart as you possibly like, but anybody who's got experience and knows what they're talking about and is actually proficient at whatever they do will be able to call out bullshit when they see it. And so I've seen so many of these TikTok videos as well. I really genuinely admire the way that Charlie breaks it down, because it's straight to the point and it's what people need to hear. And unfortunately, people will still come into the comments with nowhere near the same level of experience, trying to say, oh, well, you know, you're wrong or this or that, whatever. If I know how to kick a ball and I'm teaching you how to kick a ball, you need to listen. You don't turn around and say, no, this is how you do it, when you don't know how to kick a ball yet. So if I know how to trade the markets and I'm telling you how to proficiently trade the markets, and I'm not talking about trading strategy alone here, I'm talking about what it means to be a trader. You don't turn around as an inexperienced trader who's making no money and say, well, I think you should do it this way, or I think this, or I think that. What you think actually does not matter. I would say the ideal student would be somebody who zips their mouth, doesn't say a word, doesn't even have an opinion, and just listens, right? And humbles themselves down and takes away all that ego. That is somebody who will learn properly, build correct experience, and a year or two later will be in a far better position than somebody who just thinks they should do it this way or that way based off of no substance or experience. So I've got a lot of opinions. I've watched this video once. I'm going to watch it a second time here now, as you can see, and I'll share my thoughts.
This is the single most important trading tip that absolutely changed my trading game. I would actually credit the fact that I'm a 5-figure funded trader to this one realization and this one tip. Now, as we know, 98% of all traders lose money. So in order to not become part of that 98%, I simply had to stop doing what the 98% would do. Now, this might sound simple, but it's a lot more complicated than that. And this is where empathy comes in. Being able to realize what other traders are going to do and put myself in their shoes. Because if I can realize it, so can the big banks and the big institutions controlling the market. And if they can realize it, they're simply going to stop these people out. Once I've realized what they're going to do, I simply don't do that. And sometimes I'll even do the opposite of what these 98% of traders will do. Now, I trade smart money concepts, but guess who else trades smart money concepts? Hundreds and thousands of other smart money traders. There's going to be hundreds and thousands of smart money traders taking the same entry at a given point. Banks and institutions, the people that control the market, they know this. So what they'll do is they'll drive price past everyone's stop losses before making their move. I need to identify where everyone else is going to be taking an entry, and I also need to identify where banks and institutions are planning to make that manipulation. Once I've figured that out, all I need to do is figure out where most people won't be taking their entries from and take my entry from there. Now, this is more to do with the psychological aspect of trading, and if you're interested in learning about stuff like this, I am releasing an ebook today at 6 PM UK time called Mastering Psychology. It will be available on the Sci-Fi Academy website, so if you are interested, you know where to look.
I don't know what to say really. So, you know, it's, yeah, he's saying the right sort of things, but no one knows where the institutions are trading, and the institutions aren't out necessarily to get where retail traders are placing their stop losses. This is a recurring theme that seems to go on within certain parts of the trading community, that they think they know where the institutions are trading and what the institutions are doing, and it's just not true. So the institutions do not care about what Joe Smith, Jim Bloggs, whatever, is doing with their trades, and the market is an order fulfilling mechanism. It just moves around and it moves around on so many different levels and for reasons. So it's, forget what institutions are doing. Forget all that. Yes, there are places where people place stops which are vulnerable at times, where you will just get stopped out and it goes higher again. But don't worry about all of that. It's not going to happen all of the time anyway. So there's plenty of levels in the market where the market doesn't come down and stop you out and go back up again. So, and if it does, you can always get back in again. So it's just this myth of what institutions are doing, I just find very tiring, because having dealt with institutions myself, they're not interested in what retail traders are doing.
So the point I want to raise first of all, when watching through this, that just came to me now, we realize for a second that around 85 to 87% of the daily market volume is constituted for by 4 or 5 major central banks. And the remaining 12%, approximately, there or thereabouts, is constituted for by smaller hedge funds or smaller institutions. Retail only account for up to 1.5% at most of daily market volume. That's all of retail traders, which there's more of, by the way, than central banks or institutions. There's millions of retail traders. There's not millions of hedge funds and millions of central banks. There's a very small amount, actually. You could probably count them on both hands. Now, if there's roughly about $6.5 to $7 trillion a day going through the markets per day, and 4 or 5 central banks accommodate for 85 to 87% of that, that's about 6 trillion roughly. Do you really think they're going to try to trade the markets for the same purpose that you are, which is to make money? Do you really think money is a problem to central banks or accessing money? Not at all. The Federal Reserve, for example, prints its own money. Everybody knows this. This is not new information. Everybody's known for a long time that the Federal Reserve, as an example, prints its own money. And obviously it gets lent out different places. So central banks don't have a problem accessing capital, getting capital loaned to them to unlimited amounts. Money is not a problem to them at all. They don't trade the markets to make money. And this is the confusion that many traders have got. And they think they play FBI detective. They listen to a few people on Instagram or the internet or whatever, and who sound smart and look the part and make themselves feel like they are the part, and they say a lot about nothing. So banks, as Charlie's mentioned here, don't really care as to where you've put your stop losses. Yes, coincidentally, you might be positioned in a certain area where, literally by coincidence, that you happen to get stopped out because the market got pushed a certain direction and then went the other way. That's just part of the game. That's just part of the business. You've got to see that as a business expense. I mean, if we're living in a world now where you have to explain to people what a woman is, you have to literally define what is a woman to people. I am not surprised that people also lack the brain cells and the level of intelligence to figure out that they can't trade like a bank. I'm not surprised that people have not come to that realization yet, and they lack the brain cells to see through that. You can't trade like a bank, and you never will, no matter what anybody says to you. And I'm not trying to be a pessimist by saying that. I'm not trying to be someone who just ruins or burns your hopes. I mean, I don't know who started this propaganda in the first place of convincing you that you need to trade the same way a bank does in order to be profitable and to make money as a trader. I know traders who, one traded for Citibank prior for 10 years, another one traded for XTX Markets, big firm, and they now trade their own capital. So they're now categorically retail traders because they don't trade behind a desk of any kind for an institution or a bank. And these guys trade such simple methods, support and resistance, that are, ironically by people today, labeled as outdated. Yet they make more money, I can guarantee, than any one of these clowns on social media telling you should trade like a bank or you should trade this way or that way. Any trader of a proficient level, as I mentioned before, can call out bullshit straight away. Not even a trader. If you're a professional athlete, if you're proficient at anything that you do, you can simply tell by looking at the way that somebody describes that endeavor as to whether they know what they're talking about or not. And you can very clearly see this notion, this ideology on social media when people talk in this way, the same way that this person on the left was speaking, that they're just amateurs. I hope that if the person's watching this can actually take this as criticism, not as an insult, because that is the way that you grow, that you should stop thinking this way, right? I get it, and as Charlie mentions, well, it sounds great, it sounds correct, right? It sounds right, that's fine, you're along the right lines, but it's still promoting the ideology that banks give a shit about you and how you trade. They don't care in the slightest. And so I don't know who started this propaganda of you need to trade that way, because you don't. You can trade the most simple method on the planet, arguably an outdated method, but if you're consistent in high quality decisions and you're excellent at pressure management, you will win in the end anyway. These people who trade at a high level behind institutions, or be it a retail trader at a high level, if you were to put all of them in a room and get them to write a thesis as to the lessons that they've learned and their tips of being a successful trader at a high level, 100 of them, who are different people, by the way, different backgrounds, different personalities. Whereas obviously as a trader, in my opinion, you should have one personality, but I'll dive into that in a second. Different personalities, different upbringings, different backgrounds. And you were to get them to write a conclusive summary of what I just mentioned. I swear to you that if you were to now make an average of that summary and write that down on one paper as like a conclusive overlook on, as a conclusive analysis on what have these guys said, let me merge that into one page, you would have the same categorical points as to what it takes to be a successful trader. Impartial thinking, excellent pressure management, emotional intelligence, a system with an edge, decisions of high quality, and the list goes on. These are simple things that people should know. And I would be very surprised that people don't already know this. The problem with traders today is that we're drowning in information and we're starving of wisdom, because we jump from one trading method to the next multiple times periodically. We don't stick to one method of trading. We don't look to master that. And because that's the case, you're distorting what I like to call your trading lens as to how you perceive and view the markets. Because a strategy in how to approach the markets is just an interpretation of when to buy and sell. That is simply how there's a fluctuation in orders that enter the exchange in the market, because everyone has a different opinion on when to buy and sell. There is no such thing as right and wrong. The market moves how it moves. You can't change that. The market's going to move how it's going to move. It's going to go up and it's going to go down. And it leaves patterns behind. And you simply trade those patterns, whatever they are. Whatever your method of trading is irrelevant here. There's 3 components I want everyone to focus on when it comes to proficient trading. Number 1 is having a trading system that gives you an edge in the markets. That's just common sense. But that's the easy part, especially today with the access information that we've got. It is the easier part. Once you've got that nailed down and you've got the fundamentals of that system nailed down, the next step is what? Formulating a trading plan whereby you can formulate entries and exits and management criteria and risk management profiles. Again, very, very easy to do that if you've got the correct education. Number 3 is your trading psychology. You need to have all these 3 as a trident, as a trinity, if you like, cohesively working together. If you don't have that, then you're screwed. What a lot of people need to understand is that I don't sit here and overemphasize psychology for the sake of it. If you're a Falcon member and you're actually part of our ecosystem, you will know the level of depth that we go into when it comes to technical knowledge and information in the markets as to how we trade. But we have a balance. We understand not everything's about technicals and not everything's also about trading psychology, right? I talk about it multiple times throughout videos in the Discord. For example, when conditions were a little bit slower over the past quarter in Q2, all of my videos in the Discord were surrounded around weaponizing your patience correctly, utilizing your patience correctly in these scenarios, not over trading because you think more trades equal more money, how to discipline yourself correctly in these conditions. All these things I dived into in my trade recaps, in my trade breakdowns, my watch list breakdowns. The market's picked up a little bit in Q3 now. The same sort of thing. Where I need to talk about psychology, I will. The markets are getting a little bit more impulsive, for example, with regards to how we trade. How do you manage that correctly? How do you manage winning so you don't get too ahead of yourself? And all these things that I broke down. So there's a touch on psychology. There's also a touch on technicals. Traders understand that. So anybody on the outside who thinks that I'm overemphasizing psychology has got it completely blown out of proportion. My YouTube channel is very diluted. I don't even pay attention to my YouTube channel, I'll be honest with you. So a lot of the stuff on here in terms of technical information or whatever is very diluted because I keep all that for the Falcon members. But we know as traders who know what they're talking about, know what they're doing, the balance between that. You've got to have them 3 things as a trinity, as I mentioned, because if you don't, you're going to lose regardless. You can have the most idealistic trading system in the world, whatever that means. But if you have a broken mindset and you're not somebody who can even apply patience correctly, because waiting for a trade and waiting for it correctly is one different thing entirely. You can wait for a trade impatiently. People don't think about that. Okay. You can sit on your hands for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but you're doing so in such an impatient manner that you blow it at the moment of execution. So you can have the most idealistic trading system in the world. It doesn't mean anything if your mindset's broken. You can have a fantastic mindset, but if you don't even understand the fundamentals of your trading strategy, you're never going to win. So you need to have all these 3 things in congruency with one another, otherwise you cannot win as a trader. So a very good video. I found it absolutely hilarious. Believe me, the first time I watched it. And I'm glad that finally this is getting called out, because 2-3 years back, not just myself, Mark for even a longer period of time has been calling out this nonsense from the beginning, right? That you can't trade this way. Don't try to trade this way. Focus on what needs to be focused on. You're a retail trader whether you like it or not. And there's nothing shameful about that. This is a propaganda that began, and I don't know who started it or where it came from. You don't need to trade a certain way. Retail, people don't even understand what retail trading means. They don't even bother to open up Google and just search, define retail trading in finance. They can't even do that. You know what? Because you're too lazy to do that, I'll put it on the screen for you, because I know a lot of you will hear this and say, oh yeah, that sounds cool, but you won't actually go on Google and research what does retail trading mean in investing in finance and compare the difference. So when people say, I'm glad I'm seeing it this way, I'm glad that retail patterns work, what does that mean? What does that even mean? So if by that logic that I'm trading a retail pattern, okay, so let's say I'm just trading a simple continuation pattern in the markets, and I go short and I win on that trade, and you went long on the same instrument in the same market at the same period of time, and you trade how the banks do, and you lost, by the logic of that retailer always is on the wrong side, what does that make you then? Do you see my point? It's so flawed, and it's the same logic of trying to explain to somebody what a woman is. When I explain these things, when I explain these ideologies with regards to trading, you know what I feel like? I feel like those people in a position who are arguing against feminists, hardcore feminists, who say, men are not important, we don't need men, we'd be fine without men. And you guys know how flawed that argument is. Men literally fix the roads, work jobs of such high risk that women would never go towards. And this propaganda, again, it's just modern day propaganda that began in the last 20 to 30 years that has completely ruined our society and dismantled it. And it's bleeding into all areas. This mindset is bleeding into all areas, but people don't know their position and don't know their place. They don't know their roles. We've lost our roles as society, and this is leaking into trading, where traders don't even know their role. You're a retail trader, and get over it. Okay, so case closed. We're making more reaction videos, and hopefully you guys took something